Alright, how's it going? My name is Stephen Costigan. This is my final calculator app for Art 337R. And so what I've done here, what I want to do first is go through my prototypes and sketches and then go into my final. So I started off here, this was my original sketches. These were my original sketches for my calculator app. I wanted to do a kind of a fitness tracker, or I guess a weight tracker for a fitness app. And just something that would motivate you to lose weight. So the main thing I wanted people to do was add their weights and see how it changed over time, and as well as provide community involvement and so forth, so that they would find not only an app that would help them to lose weight, but also a community that they could help have support them. So just had 5 basic layouts that I started with, which obviously evolved as I went along. Um, and a lot of the things that I put in here were stayed very much the same throughout the process. There were a few things that changed, like I added sections in and I got rid of some of this stuff, like where this person posted just a status and this person posted a picture, and I had kind of both of them side by side, and just it didn't look neat. As well as having a forum section, I completely just got rid of that whole idea and replaced it with something else, which I'll talk about later. So this was my first sketches that I had, and from there I created these wireframes. Now I printed out the wireframes and took them to my wife, who is very artistic actually. My wife is extremely artistic, and she had a lot of great suggestions for me and continued to offer great suggestions throughout the process. So I'm going to continue to reference her, even though she only looked at this first one, as she continually looked over my shoulder and said, hey, you should do this, because, because she loves me. And so anyway, I incorporated a lot of the ideas she had, and found that I actually forgot to include this one in after this first modification. So she gave me these great suggestions, and from there I created this. This was my color version, um, and I kept with a kind of blue theme, since blue is a very calming color. I wanted people to feel calm when they're thinking about these things and feel like they can trust this app. Blue is another color for trust. Um, so I went with a very trusting, calming sort of a color. I didn't want people to get too agitated or anything like that, because weight loss is a very agitating process. Um, so anyway, my wife's ideas started to populate in there, and I replaced the forum, for example, with some of this stuff like browse topics and community events, so that people could browse things that they were interested in rather than trying to go through a forum, which I feel like is an outdated form of communication in many respects. In the traditional sense anyway, there are still many forum-like things that aren't, but the general idea of a forum is very much out of date in today's internet usage. Um, and also some other things. There were some great suggestions of including the goal weight and so forth, and being able to modify that goal. Now the next person who looked at my work had some great ideas for ways to track, for example, the goal. If they were able to be faced with their goal, then they might be more likely to keep it. Whereas right there, I don't actually have what the goal is. I just know what they lost for that week. None of these numbers are accurate, by the way. I'm just kind of threw out some numbers. Um, but the community section was one that I kind of messed around with a lot. In that these sections here, it evolved from um, actually, no, that wasn't the one. I'm sorry. That one stayed much the same. In that one, it was, uh, yeah, it was this one that changed a lot because of these. No, it was here. Yeah, these little sections. I'm sorry, I'm confused. Um, and also like these parts, I added a lot of details in here so that people could track the stuff that they were losing and so forth. And then this person obviously suggested to me that I needed to add a forgot password, which was suggested to me previously, but I forgot about it. The next suggestion, another artistically minded individual. I actually have a lot of my family is very artistic. That they wanted to see a printout, so they put it on their iPad. I actually put it on the iPad, and I kind of sat with them while they looked at it, and we talked about it a lot, and they had a lot of great suggestions and ideas, and I incorporated a lot of what they said actually into my final. But this was the last scenario, the last test case that I had. But they made the point that these areas were very small, and we had a long discussion about that, and discussed the possibility of having these things move up as the person scrolled. And so I messed with that with my final. So let's go into the final, because this is That's what's really important. I separated out my sections into 3 parts: the sign-in register section, the general use, and animations. Now the animations are all to do with scrolling, because there is an animation here, but yeah, so I also created a bit of a splash screen with just the logo in it. So let's go real quickly into that. So I created a very basic logo, which forms the word fit. F-I and then T, kind of silly. But I tried not to make it look like Facebook, but I think it's hard not to when it's an F in a blue circle. But I did my best, especially with the scales. I wanted to incorporate the scales because it's a weight loss app, and the idea of weight I wanted to be very much a part of that logo. I didn't change much in that, but I did make this part white because this is blue, very blue, and as my artistic friend reminded me that, that white would be the best thing to put behind it, and it really was. So I kept that theme going, especially since white was a color that was repeated very much in the rest of my design. Also, they pointed out that all my text was very thin, so I bolded all the buttons, and otherwise everything else remained more or less the same. Cool, that is bold. It's semi-bold. Without further ado, let's go into the app. So I'll click away and just make sure I'm not actually clicking on anything. And let's go into it. So that little animation there I thought was a cool little way to introduce someone to the app. They press that, everything swiped up, and if you already have login information, that would swipe up and you would be at the home screen. But since we're signing in for the first time, I wanted to do it this way. Or if we wanted to create an account, we'd do it this way, obviously. So now I've registered and I've already put in all my goals and everything. So here's my home screen. So if I want to look at the articles, I would scroll down and they would be here for me to scroll. This is all in my animation section here, which is pretty cool. And if I want to go back, I can scroll back to the top and all this would come back up. These daily tips would populate and would update each day, or you could press the arrow and it would go over maybe some other tips that have been had in the past. Milestones, so maybe things that you would have achieved. Maybe you've done 4 days in a row reaching your target goal. Things like that. Just a little place to store all your goals and trophies and so forth that the app provides for you. The community section, which similarly has a scroll function where as you scroll, this part all moves up to the top, but then when you get back to the top, this comes back up and you can write something if you want to. Again, with that forum idea, it made more sense to have topics and community events rather than a full-blown forum. Yeah, exactly. Next, we have the add weight event. So it was originally brought up to me that an event was kind of a confusing term, but I thought it was maybe just a different way to go about it, that each time you record is an event, and maybe it's a bad event, a good event, but it's an event. And I added the little icons there and made it very clear that this was for calendar and this was for weight. Clicking on here would allow you to upload images and so forth. These buttons don't go anywhere. Oh, that one does. That goes here. Because your weight logs would be kept in here. Similarly, also this one where you can scroll through and come back out, and you scroll to the top and this all comes back up. These are all the settings buttons, and if I press log out, it'll take me to the home screen. And that's it. That's everything. So thanks so much for watching. I hope this has been informative, and I'll catch you later. Bye.